Welcome to the introduction to the Citrus and Spice Stamp, Die, and Stencil Pack. What this product bundle allows you to create is banners across your card front. So there is the stencil to color them in. The stamp set adds the banner or the string that attaches your banner on your card front, plus maybe some added details. And then you have some dies to coordinate with the sentiments and some of the individual images. Now you can see on the back of the packaging, it creates a banner that can be poinsettias or even snowflakes. We have a banner for orange and apple slices. There's a banner for holly and berries. And then there's one with just berries. And then there's stencils to have individual items of those as well that you can cut out with the coordinating die, along with some dies for the sentiments. I'm also going to demonstrate how to stencil and stamp those banners, but first let's take a closer look at the products. Here's a look at everything stamped and stenciled out. The stencil is a 3-piece pack, and there are etched numbers on there for 1, 2, and 3. Now, also on your stencil are some etched brackets that I'll show you in a little bit more detail later on, and that helps group your items together. So first, let's start with this banner at the top with the leaves and the berries. So here you can kind of see those brackets on screen. You can definitely see them better in person. Now I'm looking at the bracket that does the leaves and the berries. So we have one layer for leaves, another layer that you can do in a different color. We have one layer for the berry, and then the second layer of the berries adds a shadow effect. Then on the coordinating image on the stamp set, it's going to add some additional detail to your leaves, so you could do it with or without. The next image I have stenciled out is that star design. So that can be a poinsettia flower, or it can turn into snowflakes, however, or whatever color you decide to use for it. Then below that is the berries. So the berries are bracketed off. There's 2 designs for the berries. You have your first layer, which is just the circle, and then the second layer, which is going to add that shadow to give it a little bit of dimension. Looking at the stamp set, your first string at the top there, it does have spaces, so it's going to be kind of in between your designs. You have one for that poinsettia look. There's also a second design to that, so there's more detail you can add to it. You have your cranberry string. You have your additional stamp layer for the leaves. You have your string for the orange and apple string. And then there's the sentiments that help kind of curve around those banners as well. The second stencil is going to create that orange and apple string. And this one, all you need to do is shift it up a little bit here and there to fill in the design. So the first layer creates kind of the main base color for each of those. And then as you move your stencil around, you can see how they perfectly line up to create more details for the orange slices or for the apple slice as well. And the last layer is going to give you even more detail on the oranges, and then it also provides the seeds and the stem for the apples. And as I showed earlier, there is a string to stamp so that can attach your apple and orange slices. Now we do have individual ones as well. So there is an individual stencil image you can create for the apple slice and also the orange that you can stencil down and then die cut out with the coordinating dies so you can pop those up for dimension. You have cinnamon sticks, you have another orange slice, you have berries and also those stars. And then again, the orange does have some detail on the stamp set. We have a shadow that you can stamp for the berries, additional details on the cinnamon sticks, and then as mentioned, the coordinating die. The sentiments included is "'Tis the season to keep cozy, so grateful for you, wishing you love and warmth, stay cozy." Those are the stamped ones. And then you have "So very thankful" as a standalone die. Now I'm going to demonstrate how these stencils work along with adding the detail from the stamp set. So I'm starting just at the top of the stencil to add I'm turning it into a poinsettia flower. I am starting off with pimento ink, and it really does help to use a smaller blending brush. That way you don't have to do any masking off. Now, if you wanted to create a full panel with each of these, I would recommend cleaning your stencil off in between each one so you don't transfer any of this ink onto your paper. I started with the next set, which is going to be the berries. And the first layer of the berries I did with pimento ink once again, and then coming in with a smaller detail brush to add cranberry ink into that little like crescent moon shape. That's going to add your shadow and kind of give the cranberries some dimension. Next, I'm moving on to the leaves and the berries. So for this one, I started out with that first strand of the leaves, and this one I did with pistachio ink. Now, in my preference, What I did after I cleaned off my stencil was I shifted my stencil up to do the first layer of the berries. I personally found that easiest to fill in the leaves, but you do what you are comfortable with when it comes to stenciling them in. So for the berries, they fit really perfect in that first layer of leaves that I stenciled out. And I'm coming in with pimento ink once again to do those berries. And then since I'm down here with the berries, I will just shift that up a little bit to add that little crescent shape, which is going to be that shadow area. This one, I'm going to come in with that cranberry ink once again. Even a really light brown would work to add that shadow area, or a light gray. Then I can move my stencil back up and fill in the rest of the leaves to complete my swag. And that's going to fit in perfectly with what was already stenciled down, because it kind of gives you the curved feature to cover the berries or mask the berries off. So it's really easy to line up. So this color you want to do in maybe just a different color or a different shade than what you previously did. And I'm going to show the stamped features of these a little bit later on. I'm going to continue down by creating my apple slices and orange slices. So that first layer I am doing with nectar ink. That's kind of the base layer for all of my pieces. And then I can move the stencil around to fill in the rest. So shifting it, you can see it's masking off the center of the apple slices. That I'm just blending in with pimento. It's one of my favorite colors right now. And then I can continue moving this around. So I'm going to do the outer edge using clementine for my orange. There's quite a few detail pieces for the orange slice. And you may notice with the orange slice, I did skip around a little bit on that one too. And that was just because I personally found it easier to do the outside edge first. I could really see that through the stencil, so it allowed me to line up the stencil a little easier. I'm also going to use clementine to add that detail to the center. And then there is one more piece that we add to the center of the orange slice. And that one I'm going to come in with a spiced cider. So you can have a lot of fun with your color combinations for that orange slice. And for the seeds and the stem of the apples, I'm just going to use nutmeg. I'm going to take this panel and place it in my stamping positioner. So I'm using a MISTI, and I have a sticky mat for the MISTI as well. I found this very helpful, not only in the fact that my strings that's going to attach everything is longer than the card panel, but it's also helping me hold those stamps in place while I line it up, because some of these strings are very delicate. So the sticky mat is also kind of gripping that stamp set for me and holding it in place until I pick it up with the door of the MISTI. And then each of these strings, I will just be stamping them using the nutmeg ink. But of course, you could even heat emboss with it. It would be really pretty to do maybe some gold heat embossing for your strings. Now, a lot of these are just going to be like in between the images to make it look like it's connected. This first one that I had turned into the poinsettia, there is a detail layer to that I am using with cranberry ink. I stamped it, I probably say about 3 times to make it really stand out in there. Probably hard to see on camera, but in person, you can really see that detail. I did the string for the cranberries. I did the added detail using rainforest ink for my leaves. And now this one with our apple and oranges, there is going to be a little bit that goes onto the orange and apple slice. So it's not just in between, but also on those as well. Here's my first card project that I created using the stencils to create those banners going all the way across my card front. I stuck with a lot of the colors that I already showed while I demonstrated the banners, and using nutmeg as my string to connect everything, and then just adding a sentiment down there and popping it up with some foam squares. And this is the second card I created using the individual pieces from that set. So I stenciled them and die cut them out with their coordinating die. And then for the background, I have eucalyptus cardstock, and I used a previously released stencil that is the Stay Cozy stencil, and ink blended it with eucalyptus ink. And that is a closer look at the Citrus and Spice stamp, die, and stencil pack. These products are available at concord9th.com. Thank you so much for watching.